Hey friends, what's good? Derek here from Bomb Socks with more Bomb Bites, where we feast upon the words of Christ and we do it one bite at a time. So yesterday, if you want to go back and check out yesterday's episode, I introduced you to Thomas B. Marsh, also to Lyman Johnson. There's a couple of members of the Quorum of the 12 that were starting to struggle during this time period. You remember that Thomas B. Marsh was given the counsel to be humble, and the Lord would lead him by the hand and give him answers to the prayers that he has. That's section 112, verse 10. It's a verse we're all very familiar with. So how did Thomas B. Marsh handle that counsel that the Lord gave him? Well, this is a continuation of what we watched yesterday, so watch this.
President Marsh accepted the Lord's counsel and labored diligently to reconcile the differences in the quorum. Still, he struggled with his own pride and hardened his heart.
Well, good afternoon, President Marsh.
Hello, Valette. I felt it my calling to come and tell you that your husband Heber will meet with no success in England. The spreading of the gospel abroad is my specific responsibility. As such, the door to missionary effort in England will not be opened until I send someone or go myself.
Pride led President Marsh to apostasy. Before the trials of Kirtland were over, 10 to 15% of the members would become disaffected. In later years, 8 members of the Quorum of the 12 would leave the church, including Thomas B. Marsh and Lyman Johnson.
You know, the story of Thomas B. Marsh is a sad one because he had tons of potential, but pride was what got in his way, and Thomas eventually found himself out of the church. So during this really difficult time in 1837, we lost close to 300 church members, which this is ridiculous. We lost all 3 witnesses to the Book of Mormon. Martin Harris, Oliver Cowdery, David Whitmer all struggled. You also lost a member of the First Presidency. You lost Frederick G. Williams, and you lost 4 members of the Quorum of the 12. You've got John F. Boynton, you got William E. McClellan, Luke Johnson, Lyman Johnson. You saw a little bit of his story. Thomas B. Marsh is gone in just a few months or so. So that is the equivalent today, honestly, of losing members of our own quorum. You know how much this would probably rock your testimonies to all of a sudden these guys just up and leave the church. So the question is, why? Well, one of the big things during this time period was this crazy thing called the Kirtland Safety Society Bank. Okay, this was 1837 during this time period. Let me give you a little context here. So in 1837, the saints in Kirtland experienced some financial problems. So to help the saints to be more self-sufficient in their finances, Joseph and other church leaders established a company similar to a bank and called it the Kirtland Safety Society. Because of a widespread economic depression during this time, not just in Kirtland, but it was all over the United States, many banks failed throughout the nation. The Kirtland Safety Society also failed in the fall of 1837. 200 investors in the bank lost almost everything, and with Joseph Smith sustaining the greatest losses. Even though the Kirtland Safety Society was not funded by the church, some of the saints considered it a church bank or even the Prophet's Bank, and they blamed Joseph Smith for their financial problems. Some even began calling him a fallen prophet. But despite the bank's failure, many others who lost money continued in full faith and stayed true to the prophet. So I'm just curious, again, you can see where pride and they start losing that eternal perspective and start focusing on money and other things like that there, and you see how people start losing a lot of their faith, which is sad because things like that shouldn't cause you to lose your faith. But go back to these emotions that I brought up yesterday. So when was a time, and this is just something that you can maybe talk about as a family or as an individual, you can write it down however you want to do it, but when was a time where you felt one of these emotions, meaning anger, frustration, offense, or jealous, which we talked about this last time, and you feel like you handled things well? And what role does humility, which is that section 112 verse 10, Thomas B. Marsh, what role did humility play in all of this? So I want to show you a little bit about just what happened with Thomas B. Marsh and Lyman Johnson, just to show you the differences of what happens when pride gets in the way and those maybe who choose humility as well. So watch this.
Lyman Johnson never did return to the church. While the saints were in Nauvoo, however, he was allowed to speak before the 12 one last time.
If I could believe Mormonism as I did when I traveled with you and preached, I would give anything. I would suffer my right hand to be cut off if I could believe it again. Then I was full of joy and gladness. My dreams were pleasant. When I woke in the morning, my spirit was cheerful, full of peace and joy. Thanksgiving. Now it is darkness, pain, sorrow, misery in the extreme. I have never since seen a happy moment.
Of those members of the original quorum of the 12 who were cut off for apostasy, only 4 would later come back to the church: Orson Hyde, Orson Pratt, Luke Johnson, and Thomas B. Marsh. After 18 miserable years such as he could barely endure, he rejoined himself with the saints.
Brother Marsh has asked that he be allowed to speak to you. I have consented.
If there should be any among this people who would apostatize and do as I have done, prepare your backs for a good whipping. How is it that a man such as I, who understood so much of the revelations of God, should fall away? I have come to the conclusion that I lost the Spirit of the Lord from my heart. I became jealous of the prophet and overlooked everything that was right. Looking for the evil, the devil began to lead me. It was easy for the carnal mind to rise up, which is anger, jealousy, and wrath. I thank God that I am back here with the prospect, notwithstanding my advanced age, of seeing the kingdom of God.
You know, I remember a great story from Dieter F. Uchtdorf where he showed a pen, very similar to this. We've got a bunch of these pens at our house. He said, I once owned a pen that I loved to use during my career as an airline captain. By simply turning the shaft, I could choose one of 4 colors. The pen did not complain when I wanted to use red ink instead of blue. It did not say to me, I would rather not write after 10 p.m., in heavy fog, or at high altitudes. The pen did not say, use me only for important documents, not for the daily mundane tasks. With greatest reliability, it performed every task I needed. No matter how important or insignificant, it was always ready to serve. I love that message. This humility that the Lord is teaching in section 112 is so important to you and I when we start feeling those negative emotions, because it's going to come. There's going to be reasons to be offended. It's going to happen. But make sure we focus on that humility rather than that pride. I remember from just a couple days ago in General Conference, that Saturday evening session, President Eyring, he said, I only want what you want, not what I want. Well, that takes courage to be able to say that. But I'm grateful for that. And that takes humility. And humility is one of those things that's going to bless our lives during those times when we have those negative emotions. Hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And thanks for sharing. We're going to continue a little bit more with some church history stuff tomorrow. Make sure you go check out our amazing gospel themed socks at bombsocks.com. Godspeed, guys. We'll see you. Bye-bye.